Happy Friday, Miami. This is Buy, Sell, Hold Miami, a real estate podcast about what's going on in the South Florida market of Miami-Dade, Broward, Palm Beach County. I'm Peter Zalewski, a condo consultant, expert witness, founder of the Miami Condo Investing Club. I'm joined here by my co-host, my partner, the moderator, no one else but Daniel Hernandez from Compass Real Estate over in Coconut Grove. He does single-family houses as well as condos. Daniel, we got a lot of big shots coming into South Florida, especially Coconut Grove, buying houses like Larry Page of Google. We got Ken Griffin or Ken Billions from Citadel right up the street. Who's the next one? I mean, what's it like to rub
I don't.
elbows with all these people?
I don't. Well, they're not. They're not eating at Monty's down by my office. I think they're going to the new place they opened down the street under the Mr. C. It's called La Specialita, which is Italian for the Specialita, obviously. I got you away from Flanagan's yesterday. We had breakfast at Versailles, did we not?
We did. We did. We were able to get in there. I'm not used to necessarily being able to be allowed inside. I'm typically at the Bentanita, so that was a nice pleasure. Thanks for talking to whoever you did in order to get me in there.
Had to twist some arms for it. But anyway, folks, hey, if you're just joining us for the first time today, we got a wonderful episode for you, episode number 47. 5 more until our first anniversary. I know Peter hasn't got me anything yet, but he's been thinking about it. I know. So if you look at the bottom left of your screen, that's what we call the rundown, folks. And the rundown, it's a few stories we pick every week, week after week. We got 5 of them for you today. And so since we got you for an hour, we're going to talk about each of these for 7 or 10 minutes. And at the end of each topic, we're either going to buy, we're going to sell, or we're going to hold. And holding is kind of, well, there's a lot of holding patterns down here in Miami these days because, Peter doesn't like to piss anybody off, right, Peter?
Haven't
No.
done it. Never do it. Nope, nope, nope.
So, speaking of pissing people off, there's some developers who I don't think their lenders are taking their phone calls these days. And maybe their brand licensing partners might not be taking their phone calls either. And we're talking about branded condos. Because in the past several months, you have Missoni getting litigated for construction defects. You got the Mandarin doesn't have anything going on, but they are imploding it. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. We got the Mercedes-Benz, Mr. Michael Stern, JDS Development, gentleman out of California, folks called Cottonwood, bought his foreclosed upon paper. It's about $80 million in principal and another $20 million in interest, reportedly getting $53,000 in interest a day.
That's not bad. That's definitely more than beer money.
So they're going to have to refinance, figure something out. They were in talks about a $700 and something million construction loan. I'm sure they'll figure it out. But if you're a depositor in one of these buildings, yikes. And if you're Mercedes, if you're the VP or the president of marketing for Mercedes and this is your first branded condo tower, are you thinking to yourself, Peter, was that such a good idea? They didn't bet the jockey on that, Pete.
I gotta wonder, Mercedes, and I raised this issue a few years ago when it first came on. This is before we started our show. We're coming up on the 1 year anniversary, but we had a discussion about the Mercedes location, and it's actually in West Brickell, which are now trying to rebrand. I would say, and I said back then, it is a C minus location. You got an Ace Hardware down the store. You got a couple gas stations where you can fill your tires with air. You got a Wendy's where you can get the $4 value meal. You get maybe a Frosty on the side. There's a McDonald's over there. There's a Moe's Burrito. And you're going to try to get a Class A to a trophy pricing per square foot. Wasn't going to happen. Shouldn't happen. If you were going to have a German car maker there, it should have been Volkswagen.
Volkswagen. Hey, I got a Tiguan. It's a great car. It's sturdy. It's dependable. Something
It's the
isn't making
people's
sense
car.
here.
The
Well,
people's
hey,
car.
I didn't even put this one in my notes because I had forgotten about it. It's been out of the news. What about the Edition?
Aston Martin.
Aston Martin. So you have all of these brands, and we talk a lot about the Carillon, FKA, formerly known as Canyon Ranch. And the HOA,
Caroline. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
it does have a great spot. What other branding deals? Let's flip the coin. Let's look on the positive note. What other branding deals have done well?
Well, if you take a look at it, I mean, the originally you had the Trumps. That's the one that kind of unveiled it all. That was Gil Deser and his father, Michael Deser, Old Man Deser. They came down here. They brought the Trump brand. It was a New York sort of hustle. It was a way to differentiate your project from, say, Jacaranda East, Jacaranda North, Jacaranda West, Jacaranda South. Blue this, blue that. So they actually applied the brand, and they were able to get a little bit of a bump at it at the time because Donald Trump, he wasn't the president, he was running a show, or he was on a show called The Apprentice, and he had all the attention. He was all over the media. That's when we had four channels. You had cable television, and it was the thing. It was before we kind of went to where we were. That followed suit. They came up with the Armani Casa. They brought on the Porsche Design Tower. You had the Canyon Ranch. And what it did is it basically added a little bit of a VIG. It played to the vanity. It played to the market brand recognition that a lot of buyers had, and these developers were able to differentiate themselves. Typically, the only reason you bring on a brand is nobody knows who the hell you are, and there's some doubts about you, so you're getting behind the brand, or two, you're trying to squeeze every little extra nickel out of that would-be buyer, and therefore you bring in the brand. Otherwise, nobody needs the branding.
And so, do the back of the napkin with me, Peter. You were talking to a developer on another one of your pods the other week. It's about a 10% vig. Is that around what it is? You got to pay to the brand the licensing fee.
Yeah, a buddy of mine's doing a project, and he had to pay a 10% vig for an international brand. It's like fashion as well as furniture goods. So he had to pay a 10% vig, but in return, he's able to charge 20% more. So basically,
So you're making a spread
he
on whatever you're paying. And then as I was researching this earlier this morning, then the HOA also pays a small vig annually to that brand to maintain sort of that air of haughtiness, air of luxury. What they should have
just
done.
like just like the Ace Hardware, that's a block and a half down from where the Mercedes site is going. That could just be a regular hardware store. That could be like a Shell Lumber, a one-off independent. But you want that Ace brand hardware, Ace Hardware brand, so you go ahead and you pay a vig. So it's kind of the same concept. It's like Subway. Are you just selling sandwiches on bread, or are you a Subway? Well, Subway's probably not a very good thing ever since the guy Jared, but that's kind of a different story. So you got to pay attention to the brands. If the brand goes sideways, now you're kind of upside down. A lot of people who bought Trump projects, if they weren't necessarily of that political affiliation, they wanted to get out. They wanted to sell. They wanted to change the brand. So it can go one way or another. It is polarizing. It can be polarizing at the same point. It can be a real selling point.
So I was reading on our buddy David Siddons is a condo analyst down here. He does a lot of podcasts. You might have seen it. He did a study and he looked at it that branded units have historically outperformed the market. Hospitality branded units. So these are your St. Regis's, your Ritz-Carltons, your Four Seasons. And I think, there's only so many hospitality branded companies, but then there's a ton of other companies. You got the car companies, you got the furniture companies.
Yes.
We joked about it. You could have an HVAC company branding a condo, and those kind of
We even got a
dilute.
strip joint. We
There
got a
you
strip
go.
joint. Don't.
Cabaret,
Oh, I'm sorry.
cabaret, cabaret. It's cabaret. It's cabaret.
Do not call it a strip joint. They get very offended. It's a cabaret. The 11. They got two towers, 1,000 units within one block. So, and then we got the wellness. Don't forget about the wellness, Daniel.
Wellness. So Knight Frank did a 2025 global branded resident survey. Branded resident schemes globally have grown from 169 in 2011 to over 600 today, and they're projected to reach over 1,000 by 2030. So there's only so many hospitality brands to choose from, and these hospitality brands don't want to go to Peter and Daniel, first-time condo developers. They want the Perez's of the world, which is why the Perez partnered up with St. Regis. They want the Nadim Ashis of the world, who developed the Four Seasons and Surfside. Johnny and Joe ain't gonna get the Mandarin Oriental. These guys want to tie themselves to seasoned developers, and maybe that's why Mercedes partnered up with the gentleman who has defaulted on his payments because he couldn't get the insert sexy hospitality brand.
Well, just for, and I'm not making any connection here, other than the fact that the common denominator is the same developer. There's also a brand called Dolce Gabbana that's going to be going up on Brickell Avenue with the same developer. And I'm not saying one thing has anything to do with the other, so do not accuse me of anything. I don't want to cease and desist. But I'm saying the brands are willing to come into the market. Some of them see it as a way to get into Miami. Remember, Silicon Valley does technology. South Florida and Miami, we do condos. This is kind of what we do. We are R&D. This is where everybody sort of comes to play. And it might be an opportunity to kind of break through. Remember, Four Seasons came here. They came in here with Manny Medina. He was a well-known developer. This is going back to the early 2000s, before September 11th. And at the time, they were going to put up the tallest office or the tallest condo building in all of South Florida. And that kind of went sideways. So, there's always risk involved, but everybody's kind of got their eye on South Florida. You come here, you learn how it's done, and then you can basically do it elsewhere. I will tell you, when Ritz-Carlton, when they got involved with a project on what is it, Alton Road, right where the old Heart Institute was, they had
Right.
never done a residence on its own. They had only been involved as a condo hotel component. But the one that went up on the Lagos Country Club on the golf course, that one was straight up residential. And then what they morphed it into is they saw this as a revenue generator in one way. And what you would do is you'd fly the flag of Ritz Carlton or Four Seasons, whatever it is, and you'd bring in all the staff and you'd train them. So those people would all be trained, and then they would be going out there. But it didn't have anything to do with the hotel and its actual core business. This was something where they simply taught people, they indoctrinated people how to run it a certain way, and then they threw it into their system, almost like a high end timeshare. I'm being sarcastic, obviously, but
So on the pre-construction sales side, though, and I know you're on the buy side. Do you do a lot of pre-construction buys, or do you only do distress stuff?
well, typically when and if I'm working with any kind of buyer who might be going in there, what we see on the pre-construction side, it's better to go after it once it's actually delivered. It comes online because remember, pre-construction is a futures contract. So you are betting by putting down your money that in the future, 3 to 4, 5 years from now, depending on who the developer is, the valuation is going to be higher than the price you're committing to today. A lot of people sort of get caught on it, just like the people get caught up on buying options right now. It could be a great thing, it could be a fantastic thing, but if you get a wide shift in the marketplace, you could be on the wrong side of the trade. And now that it's 50% deposits, it makes it that much more challenging because the developers basically, if they do it right, they got their costs covered. And if you walk on it, they almost want it because they're just basically going to keep your money. When it was 20% deposits, the last go around '02 to 2011, it was much easier to walk on it. This time it's harder. It's harder to walk on it. But from a pre-construction perspective, unless that developer has done a number of projects, you are basically rolling the dice, and chances are the developer's probably going to crap out. Once they've done three, then they're official. Before that, it's going to be tough sledding.
So at what point, we said addition, we said Mercedes Benz. Mercedes has 700 and something units. The addition was going to probably have what, 300 or 400 units at least. So if you guys are out there, if you're one of these some odd thousand persons who put down a deposit, email us, call us, tell us what's going on. Do you want your money back? Are you going to sit and wait? What is going through your mind right now? Because if I was a depositor in one of these buildings, A, I'd be pissed. B, I'd say, hey guys, you got to give me my money back. But you're kind of screwed because those developer contracts are very, very one-sided.
Well, what I will tell you, and this is the worst case scenario, we are in a gaming society where everybody likes to play games, and there's different levels and this and that. Where you do not want to end up is the Honeycomb building on Flagler Street across from Dade County Courthouse. Honeycomb building, you look at it from the outside, you say, this is terrible architecture. It looks like a beehive. That is the bankruptcy court. That is the risk of all these
The
condo
honeycomb
projects when they
building.
go sideways. If you end up at the bankruptcy court, remember, if you go, do not bring your cell phone. They will not allow you into the courthouse with that. But that being said, that's where the stuff gets worked out. And Daniel, I'm not an attorney and I'm not trying to practice law, but if I'm owed money and the developer goes tits up, as they say in Tampa, chances are I'm turning into a creditor
Get in line.
behind the lender, behind the first position, behind the bridge, behind Uncle Sam with the taxes, behind Tomas Regalado looking for his property. Get behind everybody else, and hopefully there's something left over for you.
All right. Buy, sell, hold. Bad for branding.
I would have to be a buy, and I think this is going to sort of change the tide at least for the short term. But it also gives you an opportunity if you are looking for distress. I'd be targeting these particular projects because chances are they got higher dollar amounts, and therefore you're probably going to have more people willing to kind of walk or cut a deal on the way out. They probably got
Yeah,
more
but I
money.
mean, but that would require them going BK because they're not going to let you trade. They're not going to allow you to trade the contract before it's either delivered or. I mean, what? What do you do? You just
It's Miami. Everything is negotiable.
all right. I'm a buy on it as well. We're talking about hotels. You were talking about the Four Seasons, but you know who was the first luxury one here, and that was the Mandarin Oriental, Peter. And they are. Actually, it's more like da 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 da, and then it's going to fall down in 20 seconds. But that's happening this Saturday. No, I'm sorry, this Sunday morning. Anybody, really, it's going to be a sight to see. Environmentalists, don't yell at me, but I mean, the cleanup work behind this is going to be awful. They said it's going to take months, but they are imploding the controlled demolition, the Mandarin Oriental Hotel on Brickell Key, formerly known or officially known as Clawton Island. And why are they doing this? Well, because the hotel is old and they can no longer get, the $700 a night. You know what the average daily rate on that when it opened in 2001 was, Peter?
No, no idea.
Between $500 and $700 a night in 2001.
Big money. Wow.
Big money. And then they had that place Azul, which was the Michelle Bernstein restaurant. I mean, that property did so much to put Brickell on the map because there was nothing there. They hadn't built Asia on the north end of Brickell Key. They hadn't built the Carbonell on the north end of Brickell Key. I mean, Swire, how many buildings did Swire put up on Brickell Key? 8 or 9?
I'm trying to do the
including the
numbers
office
right
buildings.
here.
It's got to be 8 or 9, huh?
Yeah, yeah. You got to pair with the office building. You have Carbonell. Then you're going to have Asia. You're going to have the Tequestas 1, 2, and 3. Brickell Key 1 and 2 was somebody else. I think the St. Louis was somebody else, and it kind of looks it. Cavourcier Center, Cavourcier Courts. Yeah, it's probably I would say 80%, 75 to 80% of all properties that are on that man-made island that was basically created when they dredged the Miami River so people could get to the Royal Palms Hotel because Henry Flagler, that's where he had his hotel, and he was in a pissing match with old man Brickell and his wife Mary Brickell, so they needed a place to dump the dredge from the river so the boats could get in. You know what they did? They left it right outside William Brickell's trading post.
Just
because they
put
had
a little
gotten
pile
into
of dirt.
And Mary Brickell supposedly used to complain about how it stunk.
So they're doing the controlled demolition Sunday, 8:30 a.m. By the way, if you live on the island and you want to get out, you're gonna have to do it by 7. And then once you leave, I don't think they're gonna let you back in there until 1 or 1:30. They have the schedule, the full schedule published there on the internet. I'm sure a bunch of people have put it up on Twitter by now. But I'm gonna go. It's a sight to see. Pro, con, they're doing it. This is Swire we're talking about here. They know how to do it. They got a new president. They sent Mr. Henry Bott back to England because, well, I'm not going to speculate, but they got him out. And they got a new guy in there. His name is Dave Martin, not David Martin. Dave Martin. So I can see how this can be confusing. But Dave Martin is the new president of Swire down here. And what is he doing? So he's building what's going to become
the... Do.
No, he's going to build a new flagship. Listen, Henry
They
Bott.
don't own anything. They've unloaded.
They got all
everything.
they got all the money.
Center.
They got all the money, and now they're going to have to build the Mandarin. You know what they did last week? They sold both the penthouses, Peter. $49 million a pop. There's demand for this kind of stuff in the Mandarin.
Yeah, let's see it get over the finish line. Just like I want to see 11 get over the finish
boo.
line. 11 is supposed to be 1,000 units, all sold out. The guy who owns the cabaret, don't call it a strip joint, called 11. He's all over social media talking about the 100% sold out. 1,000 units trying to close right at this moment, even though he's late on the schedule. Let's see him.
Well,
close,
let's be fair. It's 2 buildings. One of them is sold out. I don't know if it's called 11 Beyond. 11
sold
Beyond.
Out.
Sold out. All right. What they're saying, what they're not saying. So here's my question for you, Peter. The Mandarin's supposed to deliver in 2030. It's going to be a tremendous undertaking. So they're building a 66-story a condo tower, and then next to it they're building the new Mandarin flagship, which is going to be a 20-something story hotel condo concept. But this is going to be the new jewel of Swire's global portfolio. Between now and 2030, though, there's a lot delivering. I mean, that's probably the last building in line in terms of, current planned proposed buildings. Anything else that I see in my spreadsheet is getting delivered before 2030. What about you, Pete?
I still don't think it's going forward at the way that they're talking about it.
No, really? What do
I
they do?
don't
They
see how
bring
it's
in
gonna.
David Martin? Everybody else is doing it.
Listen, if you're going to go forward, you're going to build on a man-made island a project of a size that you haven't necessarily done before. Would you really blow out the head of your local organization? This guy who's in there right now, does he have the track record? Is he the jockey to get you over the finish line, or is he simply the good-looking horse that the degenerate gamblers look at before a race? I would tell you he's simply a placeholder. I'm not sure that they're going to go forward. I think they have to go
What I
step by
thought
step.
Henry Bott was the placeholder.
Well, no, Henry Bott was the executioner. He was the one who was selling off everything. He had to make sure they got out of all their positions. They had plenty of cash in the bank so they could turn around and they could take advantage of any opportunities that came about. Remember, the whole concept of Swire, their vision was done by a guy called Stephen Owens. He's the one who put it all together. And everybody else, he's Steve Jobs of Apple, the same way. Then you had other people sort of cleaning up or offloading everything he's done. I haven't seen a visionary come online yet. The only thing I've seen Squire do is sell, sell, sell. So let's see if they actually get it over the finish line. I would take the under on them doing it. I would venture to guess they're going to JV with somebody who actually has the track record to kind of make it happen. But what do you got to do? You got to take down the old hotel first before you can clear the site.
So big point of contention there is so the Swire controls the Brickell Key Master Organization. So if you guys, if you buy into Brickell Key, you have an HOA in Carbonell, Asia, Tequesta 1, 2, 3, 4, 1000. You have that HOA, and then you're also part of the Brickell Key Master Association. What does that do? That maintains the landscaping, the beautification, and the seawall, which is really important. The seawall, it's what keeps everything together. It's like a corset, but for an island, right? And they are really peeved because the Brickell Key Master Association, controlled by Swire, has said that they need a new seawall at a cost of $33.6 million. So that's going to cost every unit owner on the island somewhere between $4,000 and $20,000, depending on what the square footage split is in your given building. And the residents are like, guys, you're the one who's part of my French, but fucking it up. Why don't you pay for it? You guys just made 700 or just divested into $750 million in cash. What's another 30 million? I don't know. We've talked about this before. I think Swire needs to pay for it. Look, Ugo paid for the infrastructure on Grove Isle.
Yeah, and look what he's doing now. He's running billboards above a bait shack on 27th and US 1.
But it's working. It's working because he's transacting in there. You're just giving Ugo a hard time.
Ugo, I'm just winding you up, Ugo. You do good quality work, but you got to admit, you're running an ad for a high-end condo above a bait shack called Crooks and Crooks right next to a Burger King. That's like trying to sell a Mercedes condo project down the street from an Ace Hardware, a Wendy's where you can get a combo, and a Frosty, and a couple other gas stations where you can fill your tires. Some things just don't make sense unless you're in Miami.
Few things. One, that's a main intersection. That's 27th and US 1. So every rich guy going to Pinecrest or going to US or going to Brickell from his mansion in Pinecrest is looking at that billboard. Two,
especially anybody going out from the boat launch in Coconut Grove, they got to get bait in order to go out as well.
But it's not, and that's my two. It's not a bait shack. The Crook and Crook is an institution. But we're getting sidetracked. Buy, sell, hold on the coastal implosion. I already know what you're going to say.
Oh no, I'm a buy. I'm going out there. I want to see.
We're going out.
I want to appreciate it. Oh heck yeah! I don't know how. I might stay up all night and go directly there. But I'm going out there.
What are you going to do for the rest of the morning? What are you going to be doing, Peter?
I'd probably go back and go to sleep. We should have like a live. Daniel, why don't we do a live stream from there?
I think we should do a live stream.
Let's pick a point. Maybe let's go outside Jade Brickell or something. They got those benches.
Right next to Ken Billions' place. I
Yeah,
love that idea.
we'll make it a picnic of sorts. Ken Billions, come on out. Once you get us some catering, you're throwing around all kind of cash. You're very philanthropic.
I'm a buy. I'm a buy. Speaking of condos, there's a macro theme that Peter likes to talk about, and then I wordsmithed it a little bit. Trickle down condonomics. So Peter, you have a line of demarcation created by the FDOT. That's Department of Transportation. But that we're talking about I-95. And so I-95 cuts straight through the heart of the Central Business District. And to the east, you have Brickell in the Central Business District, which we refer to as downtown. And to the west, you have, well, the rest of the county. So, Peter, why don't you tell our listeners, why don't you tell our viewers what your whole thesis is in terms of the east side of this and the west side of this?
Yeah, so generally speaking, there's two different metaphors, analogies to sort of keep in mind. So we'll start off with the first one about east versus west. When you're east of Interstate 95, I want you to think of everybody living out west. These are regular people. How much do baby diapers cost? How much is milk? How much is gasoline? How much is everything? All those people living out west and what I would say horizontal, which your house is, many of them are making their money off of what's going on east, whether it's a hotel, whether it's a hospital like Mount Sinai, whether it is tourism, whether it's real estate, whether it's swinging a hammer and you're building the signature bridge tower, which is again going to be delayed again. But everybody's making their money on the east and then they're going back to the west. So think of it this way: back in the day, let's call it the caveman days, the big game, you're hunting for it east of Interstate 95, and then you're fleeing back to wherever you're staying, which is going to be west of I-95. So that's my big picture. Now let's take it another step further. I look at condos the same way I look at salty snacks, oil, orange juice, pork bellies. And what is that? These are commodities. These are cement, they're rebar, they're marketing, it's nothing else. And once a condo comes online, it's going to trade based on price per square foot. It's not going to trade on anything else. Star Architect, brand, nobody really cares. And the reason I know that is when it gets stress test, you see things just simply trade based on pricing. So in my mind, a condo is a commodity. It's like back in the day when you would call your broker called the person on the floor write up an order, they give it to a runner, they take it to the trading pit, and guys hands out was selling, hands in they're buying, and yelling and screaming. So when you're east of 95, that's what you're doing. And the premise and the concept is people out west, real people out east, they don't care about the family of four and a dog. They don't care about the American dream. They get in when it's low and they get out when it's high, in theory, but inevitably, they all get in when it's high and they get out when it's low. And locals take it from them.
So, what what do you think, Peter? What is the biggest industry here? Like the the job with the most people employed here in Miami-Dade County?
In terms of regular people, well, that's interesting. Let's look at the Miami Realtor Association. They got
It's
60,000.
it's not realtors, but realtors comes close.
But I'm just saying, like, I'm just trying to run the numbers. Like, okay, so let's compare that to like the Port of Miami or Port Everglades or anything. It's not a lot of people moving containers, TEUs, 20-foot equivalents. Not a lot of people these million square foot warehouses out in Doral
Well,
that are air
that's
conditioned.
and you make a good point because I think the most of the port it's all unionized, right?
Yeah, I think it's different shops. I think
Like you
one's
had the
seaboard.
longshoremen, and then you have
Yeah,
these
yeah,
guys doing that.
yeah. But
So here
but still, it's not a lot of people.
in Miami-Dade County, I pulled the numbers. So this is full-time, like W-2 construction. It's 64,200. But the reality is that most people who work these jobs are not W-2. These are independent contractors. And so when you include all of them, the number balloons to 272,300 construction and special trade workers. And just to put that into perspective for everybody watching, that has grown significantly. I'm talking like 100% more than the national average over the last 10 years. So the national construction sector always grows like 2%, 2.2%, maybe 3%. In Miami, that's been like 6 to 9% annually over the last 10 years. Because that's what we do. Peter and I say it all the time. We do condos and we do cruises. And we just talked about cruises. Or we're going to talk about cruises, I'm sorry. But these are our two really big industries. And then foreign capital kind of fuels the whole thing. And I think that's why we grow at this clip. And then as people buy these condos, as foreign capital buys these condos, it feeds the people to the west. And that's my whole theory of condo trickle down condonomics.
And I think it works. I think if you've been here long enough, you just see it. You see it metamorphosize. You see everything going on in the East is where the money's being made. You're not going to make the same money building, slapping up townhouses in Homestead. All due respect to Homestead. You're not making the same money in Tamarack. You're going out to Tamarack. You're going to be selling to people who are going to the bingo hall. It's not happening. You make your money east. Why? Because people dream of waking up and looking at the water. They want to walk on the sand. They don't want to walk on the reclaimed Everglades in Kendallandia. That's the last thing they want to do. So the big money's east, and the people living are west. The real people living is west. You want a good indicator. Track how much it costs for limes. Go to the grocery store and see how much limes are when you're east of 95 versus west of 95. Ask about a beer. Ask about a Cuban sandwich. Ask how much is a Cuban sandwich when you're out west
Versailles,
versus
you can
east.
still get a Cuban sandwich for about $10. We saw it yesterday. I was
Dude,
amazed.
you go to that sandwich place, you're talking 15 to $20 for and then you go to Versailles, the legendary establishment. 10
Well,
bucks.
let's get real. They own their real estate.
And they own a lot of real estate.
They own a lot of real estate. They bought the building next door and knocked it down and built a parking lot. We were talking about that yesterday. So it's interesting that you said the wage numbers, because I pulled those too for us, Peter. So
Nice.
the contrast is one of the starkest that I think you might find in any major metropolitan area. So Brickell's median household income sits between, depending on what little mini little submarket you're in, is anywhere between 113,000 and 130,000. Now,
Whoa.
when you go west, Hialeah, 55,000, Sweetwater, 55,000, Miami Gardens, 60,000, Opelika, 37,000, Florida City, 47,000. So, and then let's take it a step further. Of the surveyed construction workers, so they surveyed several hundred construction workers, $19 an hour. $19 an hour doesn't even get you 40 grand a year. So where are these people living? They're bunking up. They got roomies. They got 10 people in a house. And this always goes back to our affordable housing question, and why we need more of it. Because if we need the construction workers to fuel this engine of development, then we have to have places for these construction workers that you want to pay $20 an hour. We need somewhere for them to live.
But, and I said this to Mayor Cava. I was on a panel with Mayor Daniela Levine Cava. She was talking about building affordable housing, and I brought up good old Mark Sarnoff. Let's go back 20 years ago to Mark Sarnoff. He was a city commissioner. He represented Coconut Grove. He was in there. And he was talking about workforce housing, affordable housing, blah, 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 blah. And you know what happened? Market changed. The market always corrects itself. So the whole the affordable housing thing, to me, it doesn't really make sense because real estate's not real time. The market changes. Now, there's some rough times, but then the flip side is you're going to be coasting. You're going to see as prices start to pull back, as we start to clean up some of these vintage condos, these ones that are facing greater scrutiny, greater special assessments, as they start to get terminated, you're going to have a lot of opportunities for people to come in who are basically renting, and they're going to be renting cheap. That's what I'm banking on. That's what I'm expecting. So I'm not necessarily that concerned about the workforce housing. That's something, it ebbs, it flows. I'm seeing a lot of for rent signs. A lot of for rent signs on there, and I'm seeing them in interesting places. A lot of people who go to rent, they don't put it on Zillow. They don't not put it online. They put it out. They put a sign up in front of their house. They put a sign up at Publix. They put a sign up, and then
But is that the
you
exception to the rule, or is that typical?
I have never found a rental, and I'm renting right now. I've never found a rental using the MLS. MLS is a database for realtors where the commission's paid. The deal
I've heard
I
of it.
find is when you drive around.
All right. Trickle down condonomics. Peter, you have buy, sell, hold on it. Does it make sense? Does it is it the way?
Yeah, listen, they can market it one way, but that's the way the world works here. That is the way the world works here. The chicken parmesan, that's $50. You're finding that east of Interstate 95. How much is it going to be out west? Probably talking $12-15. That's the difference.
And it's still pretty good. Still pretty good. Arguably
better. It's probably going to be better. It's kind of interesting, Daniel. Flanagan's is a very popular restaurant that we tend to go to, and I know I'm blowing the time, but this is sort of interesting. So what I've noticed, and I like to look for arbitrage opportunities. I've noticed each Flanagan's even though they'll probably deny it. Each Flanagan's does things differently. For instance, if
Of
you go to
course.
Surfside, when you go to Surfside, the quantity is going to be smaller. You go to North Miami, 135th or so in Biscayne, they're going to be very generous. So it's all about sort of taking advantage of it. Now, granted, that's east of Interstate 95, but it depends on where you go. It's all going to be sort of playing to the locals. And when you're east of 95, everybody assumes they're going to get taken advantage of. And when you're west of 95, they're simply not going to go. They'll maybe be one and done and not go back. And then the business goes belly up.
Tits up.
Tits up, as they say in Tampa.
All right, I'm a buy on it too. We were talking about the cruises, but now we're really going to talk about it. Port Miami is cruising. So Port Miami, cruise ship capital of der Munde, which is the German for the world. 8.5 million passengers last year. Growing.
Round trip.
I don't know.
Round trip.
And so get this. Port Miami, everybody knows where it is, right off of Bayside, right there. It's that artificial island, Dodge Island, that's what they call it. And they have built, or they're in the process of opening the 10th berth. And that's not berth like a baby, that's berth, B-E-R-T-H. It's like a parking spot for a ship, a berth. And so they fit, and I'm going to pull it up for the gang on the old map. Let's see where we are here. The berths are right here. Everybody see that? Everybody can see it. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then the ones over there on the east, really interesting. First of its kind, they're treating it more like an airport, Peter. So instead of every cruise ship line having their own particular terminal, MSC, which owns this one, is more like an airport, right? So any ship can sort of dock there. And it's, because cruise ships historically, it's like you went to the Royal Caribbean terminal, you went to the MSC terminal, you went to the Carnival terminal, and then the experience was different in each one. And so what Port Miami decided to do, probably because they were coerced into doing it because of the lack of space on Dodge Island, because remember, there's also a tremendous amount of cargo that goes through this. It's not just all about cruises, despite the amount of economic activity and economic impact that it brings us here in Miami. Because think about it. You have all the cruise ship passengers, so 10 berths, what is that, like 70,000 passengers on any given day if they're totally slammed? They all got to stay somewhere the night before, so they're all staying in the World Center. They're staying in an Airbnb in Edgewater. I mean, the money that this machine drives is crazy, and I'll get off my soapbox in a minute, which blows my mind is how they let the fuel terminal debacle on Fisher Island slip through their fingers. It's probably because their fingers were so lubed up from all the bribes they were taking. Unsubstantiated, but seriously, guys, this is so integral to our economy here. So much so, in fact, that the port, and part of their multi-billion-dollar capital improvement fund, they did what maybe the Trump administration might describe as a DEI initiative, because it was a very green initiative, Peter. Less than 2% of the cruise ship terminals globally do this. They have something called shore power, Peter. And shore power, which sort of seems logical, is that the ships can plug into the local power grid so they don't need to run their generators when they're in port. So it cleans up the smog in the air. They estimate that something like 37,000 cars, that's what the equivalent of 10 ships parked at Port Miami represent. So when they can turn off their generators, that's a really nice thing. And the port worked that into this budget. And I think that's just so cool.
It's fantastic. I mean, that's the way we ought to be going. But there are other changes we can be making too. Why do we need parking garages at Dodge Island? Why do you need a parking garage? You're going on a cruise for a week.
Because no. There's people that work on Dodge Island too. That's where Royal Caribbean's headquarters is.
Yeah, but the same thing with Miami International Airport. People are working at MIA and they're taking shuttle buses. They go park somewhere else. Why are we doing that? Why don't until President Trump builds his great library on that site that he got for free, which we valued $368 million.
No parking.
Why don't they make that a parking lot? Have everybody park.
It is a parking lot.
No, but make it for for the port. Get rid of those parking garages they have in the middle. If you've been on a cruise, Daniel, you know when you get off, everybody's bum rushing. They wake you up at 6 in the morning. They're shouting over the speakers. You don't know where you're at if you were drinking the night before, trying to get
I'm
in the
not a
free cruise.
cruiser. It's not my thing. Is that how it is?
Right.
It's awful. It sounds awful.
6 a.m. they start notifying you, and they're telling you every 15 minutes, and there's speakers, kind of like when you were in college, if you were in a dorm or anything like that, or maybe in grade school when the principal would come on and make an announcement. So they wake you up, they get you going. By 7 o'clock, you got to start getting off. Everybody rushes off, and you know what happens when you rush off? You can't get an Uber. You can't get out of the parking garage because it's like going to an Inter Miami match, or it's like going to a Marlins game afterwards where they build these vertical parking garages. Then you're going down. None of it makes sense. If they're starting to get real efficient, deal with parking next. Why do you need to bring all these cars and put them on Dodge Island? Makes no sense to me. Why not build a hotel there or something? Why not offer something with Uber?
Well, because they want the people to get on the cruises. They don't want them to stay in the hotels the whole time. The whole point is to drive. I mean, the cruise ship industry, sure, they want their passengers to enjoy themselves so they come back, but they want them on the cruises so they can go into international water and gamble and drink and buy Wi-Fi packages.
That's why Genting, when they were going to do their project, remember, they own Norwegian. Genting, the Malaysian group that owns all the casinos, that bought the Miami Herald site, that was their plan. They were going to have the hotel. They would simply shuttle you over there. There's no reason to have this parking garage. Daniel, factor this in. Port Miami used to be Port of Miami. Then they hire a consultant. The consultant said change it.
You dropped the like Facebook.
Yeah, of course. So it was a great consulting. So Port Miami, 518 acres, 518. Okay, let's see. Let me get that right. All right. Port Everglades, where the port is for
way
Fort
bigger,
Lauderdale.
right?
2190. So let's just round it. 2,200 acres of Port Everglades, 518 acres.
But that's
Port
amazing.
Miami.
That's incredible, Peter. Because Port Everglades only does like 30,000 extra passengers than Port Miami. So just think about the efficiency. I mean, it's kind of incredible.
Well, yeah, but Port Everglades also got the fuel tournament farm. You know, where they bring in oil.
And it's right next to the airport, and it's all like an intermodal transit center, right?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, if you got 518 acres, why are you building parking garages? So I commend the port by having the plugins. Now get rid of the parking garages. Nobody needs them. Everybody can ride share. Everybody can park over at President Trump's site on Biscayne and Fifth. You can set up a shuttle, come bring it along until he goes vertical.
Well, people park at Bayside. They take their rental cars, they park at Bayside, and they go on the cruise.
Yeah, but Bayside will bang you on the price wise. They need to the county should figure out a way to have people park elsewhere. Have them park elsewhere and run the shuttle, because
or park nowhere and just take the train onto your cruise.
And then have an Uber drop off. I'm telling you, when you get off a cruise, you're rushing, they're annoying you, and you get off there and then you try to get an Uber, you can't find an Uber. You can't get out of the parking garage because everybody's bumper to bumper. It's a complete nightmare. It ruins your entire vacation.
So, is the port cruising, Pete?
I mean, listen, if the port was smart, they would just give up on the cargo, and they'd go all cruises, and they cut a deal with Fort Lauderdale, let Fort Lauderdale handle all the cargo, and let Port Miami handle all of the cruises. That makes a lot more sense.
Well, there's going to be something happening, because whenever they get out of mediation with the Fisher Island folks, they're either going to have that fuel terminal capacity, and I'll bring it back up on the shared screen so people can see what we're talking about here. They're either going to have a capacity to fill up the fuel for their ships, or they're not, because the port has said, the county has said, there's nowhere to put fuel terminals on Dodge Island. They keep on building out these berths. Look all the way to the eastern point. This is where the new MSC terminal is going, where they're going to put 3 ships. I think they already have 2 berths ready to go there, but there's a third one. And then sometimes they turn over more than 1 berth a day. I mean, the logistical craziness of doing that, it just blows my mind. I know some people that work down at the port, and I respect them very, very, very much, because the logistical impossibility. Think about a single cruise ship. How many bottles of Johnny Walker do you put on this thing? Really? I mean, it's got to be hundreds of bottles, and that's just like one thing. How many bananas? How many this? How many that? So the fact that they can do what they do on such a relatively small acreage is, I'll say it again, it's incredible.
You know, Daniel, speaking about incredible, Ken Griffin from Citadel, he's very philanthropic. Mr. Billions, why don't you give up your terminal? Let's turn that into a fuel terminal farm. Why don't we use that space
Ooh, Peter,
right
you
by
just had
where?
because he's already constructing. I drove by it the other day. They're doing stuff there. They're doing stuff
So
there.
so let's dredge the bay again. Let's kind of fill in that place between the Coast Guard and Ken Billion site. Fill that in. Put the tanks there.
He's got a lot of yachts, Peter. He can't put fuel tanks there. He's got a lot of friends with a lot of yachts. He's building a little private marina. We talked about it with Raskin. Me and Raskin might be invited. You're definitely not invited.
Well, what about Virginia Key? Let's put the fuel tanks over at Virginia
Well,
Key.
I mean, they wanted to put a homeless encampment there, so with fuel tanks, homeless encampment, that's not a bad thing.
It's
Virginia
got the
Key, you
water
mean like
treatment
over
center.
here?
Yeah, it's got the water treatment center. It always smells when you go there. It's not as bad as Mount
Yeah, but then they
Rushmore
would
down in
have to like
Oakland.
somehow get the fuel to the port. I think that's the reason why Fisher Island terminal works because the barges can just go. I don't know how they do it. I don't know if there's like an underwater pipe that goes into the port. That's a good question. We should find that out.
All right, listen, North Bay Village. Set it up in North Bay Village
Oh,
or
and then
Star
Peter's going
Island.
to say North Bay Village will finally, have some sort of economic use. It's got a Benihana.
Listen, there is something called eminent domain. That's all I would say.
Yeah, and they're gonna have to come handsomely out of pocket because George Perez ain't gonna take it 90 cents on the dollar for something he bought fair and square.
Listen, there is one approach where you jam somebody up through the legal process, and eventually they miss the whole market, and then they come to sort of their senses, and they're much more willing to compromise. So,
Well, listen,
so you
I've
know,
spoken to I've spoken to residents on Fisher Island, and they would be very happy to see these go. Obviously,
but it was there before the residents got there. That's the
of
problem.
course, because I mean, look at what and so this is where what's this project going up there? Six something. Is that the Rivage? No, it's not the Rivage. What's the name of the related project going up there?
Don't know off the top of my head.
All right. Buy, sell, hold. Port Miami is cruising.
I think I'm a buy because I think they got all the power, despite what Related Group and anybody else says about Fisher Island. I mean, the county, the port is so critical to our economy. We're not going to have some developer single-handedly stop it from being able to operate. So I would have to be a buy on Port Miami.
Port Miami is cruising. It's an economic engine that keeps our world going around, along with the condos. Going back to condos, short-term rentals, folks. Short-term rentals are having a moment. So I would almost describe the short-term rentals, Peter, and you can disagree with me. You probably will. I'm going to call it a completely different asset class than your typical run-of-the-mill. I buy an apartment, I buy a condo, and I rent it out annually. Agree? Disagree?
No, I mean that's no. I mean, speak more. I want if you can. I want to hear more
So
about how you're kind of differentiating.
so it's a very Miami thing, particularly because we have at the highest level in the state, we have legislation in play that preempts most municipalities from banning it here locally. So back in I don't know what year they did this, but they turned the clock back to 2011. So any municipality that did not ban that forbade condominium owners from renting out their units on a short-term basis, now they no longer can. The municipalities cannot say no. Miami Beach did this in 2010, so they lobbied really hard in Tallahassee to forward their very austere Airbnb measures. And Miami Beach is viewed in the short-term rental world as one of the most austere in the world because the hotel lobbies on Miami Beach are so powerful. Hotels do not like Airbnbs. Airbnbs do not like hotels. They're direct competitors, and that's why we see a gentleman like Ricardo Dunin pivoting from his hotel, his wellness hotel concept in West Brickell to now his wellness branded condos, because I think he sees the writing on the wall, all of these Airbnbs coming in. Something like, I wrote it down here, ISG World Report found that over 50% of the 10,335 new pre-construction condo units in Miami-Dade and Broward were designated for short-term rentals. So, of those 10,335, something like 4,300 are in the central business district of the city of Miami alone, and like 90% of those are for short-term rentals. So these are all coming online in the next few years. Some of them have already delivered. I think 501 World Center already delivered. You got the Nomad in Wynwood already delivered. And so even in Wynwood, this is going on, and they are incredibly popular amongst the international investor set. And some of these buildings, I won't name names, but their sales directors report 80% of their buyers are international. 80%. And then when you get into the higher price points, they're all cash. So 80% international, all cash, and they're investor class units. I just think it's crazy. Either that or the sales guys are just really, really good at their jobs, which, hey, they could be.
So let's go back in a day. So, and let's start off by telling everybody in the state of Florida, you got something called the Division of Condominiums, Timeshares, and Mobile Homes.
Right.
Condominiums, timeshares, mobile homes. At some point, timeshares were a big deal, everybody. This was a great situation. You come in there, you own a week a year, and you could come and you could use it, or you could type into other ones, and they had to basically give it its own little area in the actual corporate, in the formal name for one of these divisions in the state of Florida from a governmental perspective. And then what happens? People realize once you got a timeshare, you basically can't get out. That's what I've been told.
Sell it.
Yeah, so whenever I go on a vacation somewhere, I make it a point to go timeshare shopping. And what happens is I spend about 3-4 hours. These guys work me hard, and I get all the free benefits afterwards. I don't have to spend money. I can go get a free dinner cruise. I can get this. Sometimes I get cash. But at the end of the day, it went bye-bye. And then what happened is we brought on the Condo Hotel. You mentioned Ricardo Deneen. Ricardo Deneen, he launched it basically late 90s. He puts up a project in Coconut Grove. He puts it up, it gets going. Condo hotels are going to go and going. Everybody's buying in. Short-term rental. I can come to South Florida when I want. I stay there. Otherwise, I'm renting it out and making cash. But they come to realize that they weren't making as much as they wanted to because the management fees were making it. Then, so people are like off of condo hotels. So let's start again. We got timeshares, can't sell them. We got condo hotels, all the management fees are somewhere else. And if you try to go it alone, you don't have a chance. And then we get Airbnb. Airbnb comes around, and all of a sudden it's the latest and greatest. Everybody can do it. And people pile in. They pile in such a big way now where the Airbnb short-term rentals, let's call it, they're virtually everywhere right now. If you're an end user, you're going to complain because it's transient. You don't know who's there.
You're living in a hotel.
Party. Yeah. It's basically you're living in a hotel. And the other thing that tends to happen with these short-term rentals, you might need more upkeep. You might need more maintenance. You might need to fix stuff more often. So as a result, it could have some effects. But what we're seeing right now is the market's been overwhelmed with short-term rentals. It's good at certain times of the year, but other times it's not. It's not. If you do it on your own, you can make a go of it. If you're running it through some sort of other organization, you're probably going to be a push.
Well, it's like a restaurant. They say if you're not busy during December and the Art Basel time, then you need to be busy during those weeks to cover for your not so busy weeks in July and August. Same sort of thinking. Am I wrong?
You're dead on. But this is basically a modernized version of timeshares. It's not exactly the same timeshare.
But they've democratized it even more because with an Airbnb, like I don't need to pay into the management company. I could do it myself, although I'd like to see what the split is between Airbnb unit owners who decide to do it themselves versus hiring like a management company, which I'm sure you probably have to pay anywhere between a 10, 15, or 20% VIG to.
Correct. And by the way, Rishi Kapoor, the developer who was putting up all the stuff, who's recently been indicted, according to press reports from Miami Herald and others, he was trying to build
allegedly.
Well, he was trying to build a concept that was, in my opinion, kind of like a condo hotel, a timeshare, and then the Airbnb style, where you basically be part of an entity and you can bounce around and be able to stay in key markets around the world, like really.
Oh, so you could markets. Go around to like the Marriott has something like that, like the Marriott vacations.
Yeah. And that's what he was kind of doing. So in other words, this is nothing really new. They're starting to change it, but if you're an investor, you want this. Why? Because higher rent means higher valuation. You go to Broward County or you go to Palm Beach County, you got to buy a condo, you got to own it for 2 years before you can rent it. You know how much of a valuation those bump those guys get? Nothing. If you
Well,
can't rent it, you can't sell it.
I'll tell you, I'm going back to our buddy Mr. Siddons. Sorry, I'm a fanboy, David. Real estate analyst David Siddons pointed out at the Four Seasons Brickell, Peter likes to talk about that a lot. So traditional condo units saw 200% value appreciation over the same period where the condo hotel units saw a 1% appreciation.
Condo hotels are just
well. Also, you
numbers.
can't get something else that's worth noticing is they're not warrantable by Fannie and Freddie. So if you're in a condo hotel building or X number of units are rented out, Fannie and Freddie won't touch it. And so that makes it very difficult to unload. An already relatively illiquid asset becomes even more illiquid. So it's all fun and games when you're making your returns, but if the market turns, or if the World Cup gets canceled, or if F1 moves to Palm Beach, you're not making that amazing return anymore, or whatever the condo sales director sold you when you bought it pre-construction. So you need to be really, really careful when you're looking at these projects. Not to say that there aren't good ones, but where there's smoke, there's fire, and there's a lot of these.
I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but we had 1 million people die during the pandemic. Somehow we got a shortage of housing. Why do we have a shortage of housing? People are making money, they're investing, they're buying more, they're Airbnb in it. And it has not been stress tested. These Airbnb properties have not been stress tested. Let's get hit with a good, solid recession. Then we'll see how much of the stuff.
Peter, you can't say the R word, man.
Oh. Well, I thought we can't say climate change. We can't say the R word now.
No, you can't say you can't say the no, you cannot say the R word.
Oh, well, I mean,
smeshin. Just say rhymes with smeshin.
Well, I was looking at the CPI numbers today, which are talking about inflation. Do you see inflation went from 2.4 to 3.3 because of our little jump in Iran?
I did. There's rumors down the grapevine that Jerry Powell and the gang, before Jerry leaves us next month to just become a regular old governor of the Fed, that they might even raise interest rates.
Well, listen, the mandate of the Federal Reserve is maximum employment, 2% or less inflation. We got as low as, 2.3 or so, and then we went on our little adventure with the Liberation Day, which, by the way, happy anniversary. And then we followed suit by launching an attack against Iran, and look what's happening to
it was not an attack, it was an excursion, Peter. I thought they made that very, very clear. It was an excursion.
We had inflation down to 2.3, 2.4. Now it's 3.3 and probably heading higher. Mortgage rates, 30-year fixed rate mortgage rates, they're closer to 7 than they are to 5. Could be an issue. Could be a real issue.
It's a good stress test. It is a nice thing that what's the number? Over 2 million, 80% are all cash. So interest rates be damned. As long as these prices stay high, the buyers are coming in. The people who are spending this money, they have enough money that they're like, you know what? Forget this 10% down, 20% down. Why don't we just do the old 100% down game? And that's what's different, right?
But that's the inflation play. That's the inflation play because of inflation and what it's doing.
Right. Would you rather keep your thing in a bank? Or would you want to buy this place that's appreciating at a clip of 5, 6, 8% a year? Shit, go into Coconut Grove. If you bought in Coconut Grove 5 years ago, you'd be hard-pressed to find somebody who didn't almost double their money.
I'm sure of that.
By the way, folks, that is totally speculative. I do not advise entering into a real estate transaction with that sort of exit in mind, but I'm just telling you what has happened. And it's very easy to look back at everything with 2020 hindsight. Nobody could have ever predicted what has happened. Nobody would have ever predicted what happened today in 2019 pre-COVID, but this is what happened. You go into Miami Shores, you go into El Portal. El Portal has probably seen like a 3x appreciation since 2019. Really, it's bonkers. A crappy, the dumpster garbage condo in Peter's most disliked building, probably 2x since then.
But remember, what goes up?
Would you stairs up, elevator down, right, Peter?
Stairs up, elevator down.
Short-term rentals are having a moment. Buy, sell, hold.
A moment, yes. A moment that we all need to remember so we can say back in the day.
So you're buying?
Yes.
Buying? I'm buying that too. Peter, I don't think we've had a green board, you and me, throughout. Are you just thinking about our anniversary? You're gonna make me blush. You're gonna make me blush.
I'm thinking about Sunday, the implosion on Clawton Island or Brick Key.
I've never seen one in person before. I'm so excited. I don't know if it's better to go by the Jade, which by the way is part of the Public Bay Walk since that was developed after 1979, or should we go like to the Rickenbacker, or is that too far away?
I think the Rickenbacker's too far away because when I do my walking tours, you kind of get a good perspective. And what I can tell you is right when Brickell Bay Drive kind of hooks around, we have all the smaller buildings in front of the Four Seasons. There's some benches and stuff, and you got a great angle, a great view. Because remember, it's a triangle, Brickell Key, and it'll be on the southwest side of the triangle.
This is what we're talking about, folks. We're talking about right here. So that's the Mandarin Oriental. That's going bye-bye. Yep. And so there's Ken Billions' site right there, where he's doing quite a bit of work. Ralph keeps on sending us updates, and this is public here. So look, there's this little paseo, this little plaza right there, and so this is where I planned on standing, right there, and get a nice view. We might get covered in dust. We'll probably get covered in dust, but hey, that is a front row view to progress here in Miami, and I'd like to be a part of it. We might even live stream, huh, Pete?
Let's live stream. We definitely gotta live stream. Nothing like being crabby first thing in the morning, 8 o'clock, and everybody's over there watching. It'll be a great time.
I'm gonna bring some pastries, guys. So if you're out there, we'll be there probably around 8, and we hope to see you there, folks. That is episode number 47 of Buy, Sell, Hold Miami. We'll see you next week, and every Friday after that, folks. We have some great guests in our lineup coming up over the next month. So join us live. Don't join us live. We're going to put it all over your social media anyway. But it's great to see you today, and we'll see you next week.
Oye, Miami, the